Welcome to Greek God Stories. The History of the Greek Gods Part 2, Zeus and His Wives. Zeus, the king of the gods, ruled from his throne on Mount Olympus, with his symbols of the thunderbolt and eagle becoming omens to humanity. Zeus was responsible for all weather changes, from thunderstorms to raging blizzards, depending on his mood. The Greeks considered Zeus the greatest of the gods, with those who bowed before him receiving good fortune, and those who dared to defy him subjected to terrible punishments. Having now taken control of the world, Zeus would look for a wife to rule by his side. But the king of the gods was famous for his infidelity, having no less than 7 wives during his reign. The first to marry Zeus would be the nymph Metis, the goddess of wisdom, with her soon falling pregnant with his child. But Zeus had been warned by his grandparents, Gaia and Uranus, that Metis was destined to bear him a treacherous son who'd one day take his throne. Seeing no other choice, Zeus would swallow Metis before she gave birth in the hopes of avoiding the prophecy. But after he did so, Zeus would begin to suffer a terrible headache, with the pain becoming so intense that he would ask for his head to be split open with an axe. From the gap in his forehead would spring the child Metis had been carrying inside her, a daughter named Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, fully grown and ready to take her place as one of the Olympians. Zeus's second wife would be his aunt Themis, the titan of justice and law, who had betrayed her own kind to side with the gods during their war with the Titans. The pair would only have 3 children together. However, they would come to garner great power over the mortal world, known as the 3 Fates. These sisters would become the goddesses of destiny, spinning a thread of life that would determine the road each individual soul would take. The youngest sister would be known as Clotho, the spinner, as she was responsible for spinning the thread of each human life as they were born, controlling if and when a soul was created. It was only through Clotho's great power that a new life would come to be. Her older sister, Lachesis, the Alater, would determine the fate of each person, using her rod to measure the length and nature of every thread spun upon Clotho's spindle. In doing so, she would plot out the duration as well as every major event of each human life. Finally, the eldest and most feared sister would be known as Atropos, the Unturning. When an immortal's allotted time on earth has come to an end, Atropos would take her great shears and end their life by cutting through the thread. Zeus would go on to have many more wives, fathering numerous gods and goddesses alike. But for his 7th and final wife, he would take his older sister, Hera, the goddess of women and marriage. With Zeus having finally found a queen to rule by his side, even after his marriage to Hera, his lust for life would extend beyond the heavens, with the king of the gods continuing to pursue other women, fathering countless children. Zeus would be related to nearly every god and hero, often disguising himself to gain the affection of women who drew his eye. One such woman, Europa, was the princess of the city Tyre and sister to the famous hero Cadmus. One day, as she was picking flowers by the coast, Europa drew the attention of Zeus. The king of the gods decided to claim her as his own, transforming himself into a magnificent white bull to hide his infidelity from Hera. Upon seeing the bull, Europa was mesmerized by its beauty and decided to climb upon its back. However, the moment she mounted him, Zeus set off at full speed, sprinting straight into the sea. Europa screamed in terror, gripping desperately to the bull's horns as it ran across the vast ocean. To reassure the terrified princess, Zeus decided to reveal his true identity, telling her he was not merely a beast but instead the king of the gods. The two would eventually arrive at Crete, the island on which Zeus was hidden as a child, where she would bear him many children. Their offspring would become some of the most renowned men of Greece, with Minos, the king of Crete and owner of the legendary Minotaur, being amongst them. To commemorate his love for Europa, Zeus would name the continent where they stood Europe in her honor and would recreate the image of the white bull in the stars, which would become known as the constellation Taurus. Hera, wife of Zeus and queen of the gods, was the protector of marriage and women, deeply respected in Greek society. Although revered, she was also one of the most vengeful and spiteful gods on Mount Olympus, making her a poor match for her husband Zeus, whose numerous affairs constantly drew her anger. Despite being his queen, Hera would only bear him 2 of the 12 Olympians, Ares and Hephaestus, with the other gods coming from Zeus's numerous affairs. One of Zeus's most insulting acts of infidelity would be with the princess Io, one of Hera's most devoted priestesses. When Hera came to investigate in an attempt to protect Io from his wife, Zeus would transform her into a beautiful white cow. But the queen of the gods was not fooled by the deception and, knowing that she had caught Zeus red-handed, would demand that he gift her the white cow as a present. Knowing that refusing the request would only confirm Hera's suspicions, Zeus saw little choice but to accept. Hera locked Io in a cave, where she would be guarded by the hundred-eyed monster known as Argus, the perfect guardsman. Argus could sit with half his eyes asleep and the other half awake, never breaking his watch. Zeus was too terrified of Hera to intervene himself, but he would eventually send the messenger god Hermes to free the miserable Io. A master musician, Hermes decided to defeat Argus not through strength but through wit, approaching the monster as a friend. He began playing his pipes and singing sweet lullabies until Argus began to fall asleep. As the 100th eye finally shut, Hermes would take out his sword and slay the beast before releasing Io from her prison. To thank Argus for his service, Hera would take his eyes and set them in the tail of the peacock, her favorite bird, which would become a symbol of her power. Not yet finished with Io, she would send a gadfly to torment her as she made her escape, almost driving the woman insane. Io wandered long and far, with the sea she ran along being named the Ionian Sea in her honor. The Bosphorus, which means Fort of the Cow, would also be named to commemorate the moment she passed by. During her wanderings, Io would eventually arrive at the Nile in Egypt, far away from Hera, where Zeus would finally be able to restore her human form. The two would have a child, Epiphus, with Io becoming the ancestor to many of Greece's greatest heroes, including Perseus and Heracles. Join us next time as we dive into more intriguing Greek god stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with our upcoming episodes.